All right, well, I want to thank everyone for coming. It's our third workshop for 2015 Be Launched. My name's Mark Winkler. I'll be facilitating this workshop. And as you should already know, it's a business model workshop. We're going to learn how to do business models today. How's everybody doing on the ideation? Where are you at with it?
Okay.
Have you converged an idea, or you got down to 7? You have your idea? Huh?
We're down to 2.
Oh, that's great. How about you guys?
3.
All right.
I think we're down to 2 people.
Oh, okay.
We got some damn good ideas.
You do have some good ideas? And then Jennifer and our team?
We've got 5.
5 ideas, okay. But we haven't got the one yet, but kind of looking at iterations of them. All right, so we are here to talk about business models, and as you can see, this young girl has a new business model for her lemonade stand. Can everybody see that? What do you think of that? Well, you know, remember the cook your own steak, you know, restaurant and all that? And then how many people watch Seinfeld? Remember Kramer? I mean, some of his business ideas. Can you remember any of them? Yeah, you spin and pound and make your own pizza and just throw it in the oven. He also wanted to do, mayonnaise and tuna in the same can. Hopefully you guys are coming up with maybe better ideas than those. But, you know, you do want to try to do something new with a business model sometimes, and that's what she's trying to do with it. Okay, so we do have some objectives for the workshop. I always like to go over these. Hopefully know what a business model is and how it's defined is one of the objectives. Understand why building a business model is a key success factor for a startup, and not just going with a great idea but not understanding the business model. Learn the 9 building blocks of the business model canvas. We're going to do some exercises today around that. So if you haven't already dived into the business model canvas, we're going to do that tonight. And then, again, we're going to practice building business models with the business model canvas. Any questions about those objectives or thoughts? Sound good? All right, great. So we're going to start with what is a model. You know, we're talking about business models, but we're going to actually talk a little bit about what a model is. Anybody want to tell me what a model is? You got the definition right up there. Yeah, so, you know, these, as a noun, it's a, you know, and there's different definitions, but this one is a 3-dimensional representation of a person or a thing of a proposed structure, typically of a smaller scale than the original. Okay? And so I have a model here. Anybody tell me what this is?
Southwest.
Southwest, right. How did you know it was Southwest?
Colors.
Yeah, so they're very distinguishable colors, right? They just changed their branding on it recently, though, didn't they? They think they have like a heart or something on it, which is good. So this is a model. Is it a business model?
No.
Can it represent a business model?
It could.
You think an object or a picture of something could represent a business model? Okay, so I think what we're going to learn tonight is that there's a lot of different components of a business model. And although this does a great job representing what a Southwest airplane looks like, or a Boeing 737, I think is what they pretty much fly solely. But it really doesn't tell how Southwest runs its business or how it's really making money. But I think it's a good start to talk about models. And so when we get to a business model, I think we should always go to the textbook definition first. I can't even read that. It's got abstract representation, core interrelated architectural co-operational, service the organization offers, and blah, blah, blah. So I think it's very confusing. So, you know, I think when you get an MBA, you have to learn that definition and take a test and be able to talk to it. But for our purposes, I think we're going to get something a little bit simpler than that. So we've got a couple definitions up here. And I think some people are going through the uLead Idaho course. And so I'm trying to keep this consistent with what you're learning in that course. So let's go through these definitions. A business model describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. What do you think? Does that make sense? A design for the successful operation of a business. You know, it's an alternate definition. And I put maybe even an easier one. It's where really the business model generation gets to is how you plan to make money. So if somebody's asking you about your business model, really, ultimately, it's how do you plan to make money with your business? Which means you've got to talk to different aspects of that business. It can't be just all about the idea. If you don't talk about what it takes to make that happen, then you really don't have a business model. God, all this business model talk has got me getting hungry. I didn't really get to eat today. And the pizza, I love this pizza. I really do. And my wife and I ordered it this weekend, and I had it twice over the weekend. So I'm hungry. And you could see in this cartoon, you remember your mom and dad always told you couldn't go in the pool for an hour? So I like this. I'm hungry, Mom. When are we going to eat? If he follows the rule in about an hour. So that poor kid's got to go out. So, you know, Jimmy John's, they have a business model, right? And it kind of, at the heart of it, isn't it freaky fast delivery? How many have ordered from Jimmy John's? Is it freaky fast? Really? Let's see. Okay, Google. Jimmy John's, State Street, Boise. Call. Yeah, hey, this is Mark. Yeah, can I order a roast beef sandwich? Yeah, I'm at the water cooler. Hey, wow. Wow, that's great. Wonderful, Berkeley. I appreciate it, man. All right, let's give this guy a hand. All right, so in a business model, hopefully you're going to differentiate yourselves with your model. And, you know, Jimmy John's, I think this is part of their model is freaky fast delivery, but even that doesn't tell you what their full business model is. There's a lot of, you know, there's other things in there. So we're actually going to start out with an exercise. And I want everybody to take 10 minutes in your group and prepare a 30-second verbal description of what you think Jimmy John's business model is. I'll put the definitions back up there, but just be able to stand up and have somebody say, hey, this is Jimmy John's business model. Any questions about that? All right, let's do it. So I think there are a lot of good components there, but there wasn't a standard format for how you presented it, right? So it's good. You could get a feel for the model, but it would be really nice if we had a common language around how you describe a business model, and so that we could improve that communication. So what we have here is something that's been well adopted, I think, in the entrepreneurial community and out there in industry, is this business model generation book that was written by a bunch of consultants. This Alexander Osterwalder is really the lead person on it, and he goes around and presents and such, and there's a company formed around it, Strategizer. But this book basically laid out a good foundation for how to describe a business model and how to generate one. And that's what we're going to be doing through our exercises tonight, is actually utilizing this. So I'm going to open up a file here, which is, we're going to look a little bit into this book. Okay, and I should be able to share this. It's a PDF that doesn't contain the full book, but it actually has the first several chapters, which give the high-level overviews of the different building blocks for the business model. And so we're going to go through this quickly before your next exercise. And again, here's a little sales pitch. You're using this preview if you want to purchase the book. Now, when I've taught business planning classes and in the previous B-Launch classes, I've always asked the team to purchase the book, because I think it does build a good foundation for what we're trying to do with this competition. And these are all the people that contributed to it. Okay, so now we're getting, at the definition that they offer in the book for what a business model is. And the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. And of course, that value is for the customer, your target customers. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is hand out, or get some help here maybe. You guys could rotate those around, yeah. So this is a 11 by 17 picture of the canvas. Thank you. Give you some extras here. Yeah. There's some extras there. I'll grab one. Thanks. Okay, so this has 9 building blocks in it, this canvas here. And the way you fill out the canvas, there is order to it, and there's pretty good flow. So you start with customer segments. An organization can serve multiple customer segments, but you want to define who your target customers are. Then you develop your value proposition. It's how you're going to deliver value to those customers, what that is going to look like. Then you determine what channels, how you're actually going to deliver your products or your services or that value to the customer. And you also determine your channels for how you're going to interact with that customer, how you're going to do sales and such with the customer, how you're going to support the customer. The customer relationships, it's funny, a lot of people talk about starting a new business and it's like, oh, we're going to have the best customer service on the planet and we're going to provide all this and that. And they really don't work out the cost structure for trying to be able to do that. So it's really important for your business model that you define how you're going to manage your customer relationships, how close you're going to be with your customers, whether that's going to be automated or not, what kind of service you're going to give, and be able to put that into your cost structure. So customer segments, value proposition, channels, customer relationships. The revenue streams is how you're actually going to bring money into the company. So for example, if you have a business and you're going to sell a product, let's say a Nespresso machine, right? You're going to get revenue from selling that Nespresso coffee machine. Is everybody familiar with that? It's this little machine that you buy the machine and then you buy the little coffee pods that go into it. Well, one revenue stream is from selling the machines. The real revenue stream is from the recurring revenue you get from selling the pods. And so Nestle, you could only purchase them through Nespresso. So you could buy the machines, through Amazon and all these retailers, but you can actually only get the pods through Nespresso. So they actually control the price on it so that they don't have to compete in that area. So you have different revenue streams depending on what your business model is. Now, key resources are the assets or the people or whatever you need to do to pull off the business model. And you need to define that. And then the key activities are activities that you need to do. For example, if one of the things you have to do is do hardcore research around something, that's one of the key activities that you need to do as part of the business. If you're manufacturing something, that's a key activity. Key partnerships are who you have to partner with to pull off the model. You're not going to want to do everything yourself, and you really usually can't. You usually have to have some kind of partnership in place somewhere. Either you've outsourced something or you partner with somebody on it. Usually any business model is going to involve some kind of partnership with someone. And then this all rolls up into the cost structure of what it costs to do all this and what is your strategy around cost. We're going to talk a little bit later. We're going to actually work on a business model for Southwest. And it'll be interesting to see what people think of their cost structure. So to generate a business model, simplistically, it is a matter of just going through these steps and looking at your canvas. And for your business idea, saying, okay, for this idea, how do each of these building blocks work? And really what you do is strategy pulls all these together. They don't live independently. It's all got to fit nicely together. So what is your strategy for making all these things work together? So we're just going to quickly go through. Okay, so customer segments. If you look at your canvas here, the 11 by 17, and if you have good eyes, you should be able to read for whom are we creating value, who are our most important customers. Now, most systems or philosophies start with the customer now, right? So you start with what are their needs and what problem are you solving for a customer. If you're coming up with a solution first and then working back to, all right, well, who would like this? You're probably doing it a little bit backwards. So ideally, you would say, what target market are we going after? What are our target customers? And what problems are they experiencing? And how can we develop a solution that's going to bring value to them? So now you can have one customer segment or you can have multiple. So for each customer segment, you're going to need a value proposition. If they overlap and you're going to sell them the same service or the product, that's fine. Then you could say, hey, it's the same value proposition for both these segments. But typically, you'll have a value proposition for each market segment that you go after. Thoughts, questions? I want it to be interactive. We're going to have more exercises, but any thoughts so far? Is it making sense? Yeah, go ahead.
So the example you gave about like the coffee,
Right.
Keurig, you buy the pods.
Yeah.
I thought of video gaming.
Yes.
What other industries could be like that? That it's really like, it's kind of just the introduction of the product that you first buy, I guess, like an Apple TV, right? I suppose then you buy the Apple TV, but then through iTunes you start renting.
Here's one that'll jump out at everyone. It's the inkjet printers, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so you buy an inkjet printer, they'll almost deliver it to you and give you $10 if you take it, because they make all their money on the ink. And some companies, after patents run out and such, other companies start making the ink. And Nespresso's got the same problem now. Apparently, their patents on the pods, I think, are going to run out. So they're going to have a strategy. And that's a good question, because what it points out is that the business model always evolves. You're not going to start a company, do your business model, and then, all right, let's chisel it in stone and put it up for everybody to sign. And it's going to evolve. So as things happen in the industry, competition, you're going to have to pivot and change your business model. And that's why later when we start talking about business plans versus business models, this is so nice because they want you putting stickies on here with what you're doing in each one of these building blocks, knowing that you're going to change it. So, like the founders would say, don't write on this. Just put a sticky up there with what you're going to do with your customer segments or your value proposition. And then as things change, you just change it. Any other questions? All right, so that's customer segments. The value proposition, this is something from a sales perspective, everybody would say, you need to really understand your value proposition. You need to be able to communicate it to the customer. If you don't have a strong value proposition that's tied directly to the customer, you're not going to sell things. You just won't. So when I work with clients, typically what happens, especially the smaller businesses, is I look at their financial structure and how they're doing and determine that they're not charging enough. And then when I say, hey, guess what? I really recommend that you raise your prices on your services or what you're selling. And, oh, no, my customers will never go for that. They're already nickel and diming me down to so much per square foot or whatever. And I said, yeah, that's because you're not communicating your value proposition. They don't understand why they should pay you more money for the service that you're delivering. And usually after I work with them and we say, well, what do you do for them? And then we compare it to other, the competition or whatever, and they are delivering a better service. They just haven't communicated in a way that the customer understands what they're paying for. So value propositions directly aligned with the customer are just, you got to have it. It's really at the heart of the business model. And hopefully you're solving a problem or satisfying a need for the customer. And you see a big trend, these days with everybody talking about start with the problem first. Whenever you're trying to satisfy a customer, what problem or pain points are they experiencing? And these guys that did this business model generation, they now have a new book. It's about the value proposition, which I haven't read the whole thing, but it's about identifying what the needs are of the customer and aligning them with what your value proposition is. I can't talk to the details of it, but I think it's probably going to be good. Then the channels. It's not only the channel by which you distribute your product or your service, it's also the channels by how you reach your customers, maybe with your sales team. For example, how are you going to reach your target customers? Is it through advertising? Is it through a distributor that's going to interact with your customers? So there's different channels by which you can reach your customer base. And there's obviously different channels by which you can deliver your service or your product. I'm going to sell my app on iTunes or my songs or whatever on iTunes versus directly or whatever. So those are all channels by which you're distributing your product or your service. If you don't have channels in place on the sales side or whatever, they're never going to know your value proposition. So whatever channels you're using, you have to be able to communicate that value proposition. All right, this one I really do like because everybody wants to be the customer's best friend and provide the highest level of service and support to them. But not every business model demands that or can actually accommodate that. There are certain business models where you need to get them the product and there's really not much interaction outside of that unless they have a service issue. So how are you going to acquire customers, customer retention, sales and all that? You need to define that relationship. And in the next exercise, we're actually going to circle back around and look at Southwest. And I think it'll be fun for y'all to define what you think that relationship is for Southwest with their customers. Point at the machine, not the screen. See, that's learning right there. Revenue streams, again, that's how you bring money into your company. And you could get it from different sources and different types of revenue. Okay, so every business does require key resources. And their example here is a chip manufacturer for electronics. I mean, I worked in that industry for 18 years, and literally we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on our factories to get that capital equipment to be able to make the chips. And when I left, the last factory I was working at was $1.2 billion we were spending to be able to manufacture the chips. And so those are key resources for chip manufacturing. But for other types of businesses, key resources might be different, maybe, you're selling some kind of nutritional product, so key resources are the nutritionists or, that you have working for the company. What's that?
Your suppliers? Would that be under your key resources?
Or
is that under distribution?
Well, it can be. It also can be under the partnerships too. But yeah, you can get overlap. You can get different people or resources in different components or building blocks. Yeah, you absolutely can. Any other thoughts? Key resources? Can anybody give me an example of a key resource for a company or for a model?
So if you're going to make pomegranates, use some pomegranates, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you got to be able to get the pomegranates, or key resource there might be your cold press equipment, right? That you need to be able to do that. A key activity might be the actual process that you use to do that pressing of the pomegranates and ensure the food safety. So that's a good example. So that's a good segue into key activities. So you're going to be doing certain things in your business model or in your company that are key to the success of the company. It's like the heart of what you do. So if you're some kind of production company, a key activity is probably going to be the editing of whatever content you have, right? So anybody know Wide Eye Productions? They do these great documentaries, like they did the one on the Idaho, then they did one on fishing in Montana and Idaho and such. Are spectacular. And they're a local company, and so a key activity for them would be filming the content, right? That they do all that in ultra high def or whatever they do, and so that would be a key activity for them. Key partnerships. So as I said earlier, a lot of models rely on a key partnership. You can't do everything yourself. So you might have to have a key partnership in place for your model to actually work. So you can't go into these things thinking you're going to do everything for everyone. So there might be, for example, if you have a food business, maybe a key partnership is that somebody else is doing the prep work for you at their facility. The produce person or the company that supplies your produce maybe does the prep work so that you don't have to do that in your restaurant. So maybe that's a key partnership for you, is that you're getting quality produce already prepped so that you can, it's easier for you to cook the meals. And this all rolls up into the cost structure. And usually, you have some kind of philosophy about your cost structure, whether or not you're going to bootstrap or you want to keep, minimal cost structure in place. If you're going to compete based on being really lean and efficient, that would show up in your cost structure. But if your key activities are things that are expensive, then that's obviously going to hit your cost structure. You know that. You know that the business we're in, we have activities that cost a lot of money, and that's just what it is. And that's really the business canvas.
So your cost structure, meaning that the cost to you and the cost you're charging?
Well, it's not necessarily what you're charging for the product, but it's what it really costs you to run your business model in your business. Yeah. And so, again, we're going to be doing the Southwest example. So when you look at their cost structure when they set up, what was their approach to it?
Same size airplanes.
And what did that mean? They were trying to be a lower cost airline, right?
Right. Well,
so they made certain decisions on how they were going to do things to control that cost structure, because it was part of their strategy that they wanted to be a low cost airline. Back when I was a kid, it was the Star Trek, model that everybody wanted, but that's the older folks in here remember that. Okay, so basically as you build these blocks, you put it into the canvas, and then you could actually, now there is a common language that where you can talk about these things. So let's see if we can't. And the process is that you have this canvas, you have a common language now, and what you want to do is put how you're going to do each of these building blocks, and ideally with yellow stickers. And this is a DreamWorks canvas that I captured online. And so, for example, for their customer segments, they have families, children. They've broken down to different segments on what they're going after. Is everybody familiar with DreamWorks? Mm-hmm. They make movies for kids and such, and they're actually for adults too. Whenever you watch those movies, the humor is amazing. That how they could mix the adult and the children's humor into the same movie and not have that be an issue. And so, they have televisions, channels as customer segments. So they're selling direct to consumers, but they're also selling to other channels, right? So in this case, TV channels. You look at their value proposition, and you see live shows, original artwork, and all these things that they're thinking are going to resonate with a customer that they're targeting. So this is just an example of what, if you're going to do a business model on the canvas, what it might look like. What we're actually going to do, and before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit too, where does a business model fit compared to a business plan or even a business idea. So if you have a business idea, it's something you could tell, I got this idea. You know, I'm going to start a snowboarding company in Hawaii, okay? That's a business idea, right? Somebody might say, that's a great idea. You know, there's none there, and I think you're going to be the big dog there if you start it in Hawaii. But until you really put the business model to it and say, okay, well, you know, what about the customers and who are the target customers and how am I going to operate this? Well, I'm going to need snow, and well, it does snow there. I mean, but I don't think there's enough of it to really snowboard on frequently. But so you go from a business idea to a business model. To me, that's the foundation for the company. A business plan is for when you probably are seeking money and you need to put more information to it so that the bankers are happy, the investors are happy. But the thing about a business plan is it's not very easy to change and pivot on, and it becomes outdated very quickly. And that's why the canvas is really nice. It's one page, a business plan. Here's a company we worked with, my consulting company, and it's Lucky Bums. They're a great company, and they've been very successful. And they make, they started out making ski training stuff for kids to be able to teach them how to ski. And they have, you know, nice business plan, I don't know, 30-some pages long, and DVD with the catalogs and all that kind of stuff in it. But I guarantee if I were to call Jeff and Julie and say, hey, how are things going? You know, what are you doing? It wouldn't align with this business plan. I mean, they've had to pivot and do all that. So I think there is a trend towards not doing big business plans, but if you're going to get investment money, you're still going to have to do a business plan. And so this is just humorous. It's, look what I found in a dumpster, perfectly good business plan. You know, it's probably, no business plan survives the first contact with customers. And I think I'm attributing this to the right person, is that you put all that work into the plan, and the first time you engage a customer, something's going to change. And that's where I think the canvas, you can quickly change it. And whereas with a business plan, it's a lot of work. So I'm a proponent of going to something in a lighter version like the canvas. And that's what we're doing with this, you know, really with this competition. So our second exercise now is, since we, you know, started talking about Southwest, is we're going to take this information that you have now around the canvas, and I'm going to pass out sheets that have, for each of the building blocks, it has room for you to put yellow stickers on it. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, for Southwest Airlines, and I've got the flow here for each table of each step, you know, for each component, what flow you should do, is make some room on your table and start building your canvas in the right order. And I was thinking that you could then put them on the walls, but it looks like, I don't know, space on the walls. If you can make room on your table, maybe you could just build it right on a table. And then after you build it, we're going to have you explain it. You know, we'll walk by and look at each table and have explain it. So any questions about the exercise? So I'm thinking about 20 minutes ought to do it. So that was fantastic. I mean, again, it's not about doing a perfect model in an exercise like this. It's about being able to go through the process so that now you can go through your own and iterate on that and just learn how to do that. So I really view the business model as the business foundation. And if you don't build a good foundation, you don't know what that foundation is, your business is not going to be successful if you really don't understand your business. Certain people do get lucky. I mean, they're passionate about something. They go do something. They don't know all the different building blocks. It can happen, but it's not likely. So obviously, I'm a strong advocate of a business model. And that's it for tonight. And I hope it wasn't too boring. So a little Dilbert, again, for the older people. I didn't see a canary in here, but hopefully if there were one, it didn't die. Because we know that they can die from boredom. So thanks, everyone. Yeah.